and you're always somebody that has influenced me. You help groom me, and what's crazy is that we never met. One thing that you always taught me was that showmanship behind the bar, and I felt like I had already had it, being groomed by Fridays, but I saw how you would always take it to another level, and I was like, oh, okay, so the boundaries are wide open.
Welcome to One Drink with Phil Wills this week, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a real celebrity on the show today. One Drink with Phil Wills. There's a handsome fellow behind the bar.
Can make that.
For 99 cents?
Probably not.
Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Wills chilling with us today.
Yeah. What's up? How you doing?
Hey, thank you very much for joining me on this nice Wednesday evening.
Yeah, thank you for having me. That was and thank you for that intro. That brought back a lot of really fun memories.
I just love that commercial. I've often thought that Flair can go into so many different avenues, I used to put beer bottles in Pringles cans just to weight them down, and then you can juggle Pringles cans and do all the flair that you can do with a bottle with a Pringles can. And I was always thinking, gosh, I wonder if somebody could do a commercial with a Pringles can. And then you pop up doing a knife flair and cheese flair. Clearly things you learned behind the bar.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's I think as Flair bartending started really expanding and growing in the late '90s and early 2000s, you could see a lot more of that happening in film and television. Because Flair is this huge wow show, and they started to adapt it into different things. And there's been numerous commercials that I've gone out for where they specifically called on a Flair bartender, but it had nothing to do with bartending at all. But they just wanted that skill set to come into play.
So what else were you flaring?
Well, I did this commercial. I didn't get it, but it was for AM PM, and it was a thing where you were kind of making your own drink at the fountain or whatever, and then you were doing like a little bit of ice flair. And I did some flair with the cup before I poured. But somebody, production or somebody in the creative side had the mindset of saying, hey, let's have some Flair bartenders try out for this because it entails working with some, cups and ice and liquid, and maybe we can incorporate that into the commercial. I'm not sure what they ended up going with, but that was another thing that we did.
That's great. I was in a Budweiser commercial. I don't even remember when it was. It was early, it was late 90s. It was late 90s, early 2000s maybe. And all I did was take two glasses. It was two mixing glasses, and I rolled them like this. And that's all I did in the commercial. I was there all night long, and I did a bunch of shots, and the director was screaming at the people, "This is all about Dean, people! Get out of his way!" That was all I did. And I got paid remarkable for that. I think for 5 years, I was getting a check in the mail every 13 weeks for 5 years.
Yeah. National commercials could be a great payday, man, for sure, definitely.
All right, One Drink with Phil Wills. Let's get a drink going here, sir. Again, the concept of this is, we've just finished the shift. We've ended a shift. We're gonna have a drink and just chit chat while we have a drink before we go home. All right. So tell us, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, I tell you, Dean, we had a busy ass shift, so. I don't really feel like making too many cocktails or anything like that. I just kind of want to have some nice libation and be able to sip and chill. So we're going to do a Boilermaker tonight. And, Boilermakers don't always have to be, built in a pint glass or dropped in a glass where a lot of people think they do. But essentially it's a beer and a shot of something. So I'm going with one of my favorites,
Oh, Uncle
whiskeys right now.
Nearest. Yes.
Uncle Nearest. Yeah.
Taught Jack Daniels everything he knows, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just such a great story, and it really is really good juice. So this is kind of at the end of my bottle, and I figured what's better way to finish it off than with you, Dean. So that's
I
going
am
to be my
honored.
whiskey of choice.
I'm absolutely honored. I grew up on Jack Daniels. Grew up on the story, and I love the story, and I always remember reading a lot about Uncle Nearest in the stories of Jack Daniels because he was so important to the whole story of Jack Daniels. It wouldn't be anything without him, right?
Yeah.
So I was so thrilled when they came out with that.
Yeah, it's and it's a total different juice than Jack Daniels too, and a lot of people think that it could be just Jack Daniels in a different packaging, but this formula and the way the distiller puts this whiskey together is totally different than the way Jack Daniels whiskey gets put together. But what's cool about the Uncle Nearest is it's an old forgotten way that he used to make whiskey, and he did the Jack Daniels distillery stuff as well. But this is a totally different juice from what Jack Daniels is, as many people may know.
Right, and it's owned by Uncle Nearest's family, correct?
Yeah. So they resurrected the old recipe, and there's obviously other investors in there, but the main holdings are Uncle Nearest, descendants came together and were able to produce this whiskey.
That's so wonderful. So thrilled.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm just going with my old standby of a chocolate old fashioned here. I've got some blackened whiskey and a little splash of agave nectar. So cheers to you, sir.
Yeah, man. Cheers to you as well.
Cheers.
And then I chased it with the beer too. So I have my beer in my little beer koozie.
Nice cans.
Yeah.
Well done. Well played. Good. I don't have a beer over here, but I'm happy with my whiskey. So great. I got Phil Wills in the house today. I'm so excited,
What's going on? Yes. Here we are.
I've very specifically been building this show. This is like episode 13 now.
Cool.
But the first season, we built it specifically because we were trying to learn how to do this. So some of them, the sound is off, the lighting's off. We couldn't get this to work, and I still can't get things to work. But I knew in season 2, I really wanted to get some really cool, very well-known, and very well-experienced mixologists and celebrities in the industry on the show. And here we are. Phil Wills, famous for Bar Rescue, famous for all the work you've done with TGI Fridays. You've been in multiple commercials, and of course your own consulting company, Spirits in Motion. So,
yeah,
one of the things that I like to do with the show is to create inspiration for others that are getting into the industry and going, hey, how do I create my own path, right? I want to give them the skills to be behind the bar, to be bigger than the bar, but what do they do after that? Where do they go if they want to go anywhere? So who was Phil Wills at the very beginning when you started working at Fridays? Were you bartending before Fridays or anything like that?
No, it's I used to be a DJ. So
okay.
I used to I used to be a DJ. I used to be in the clubs, and I was controlling the entertainment and offering entertainment with music, and was great, and I loved it.
So you were controlling the room at that time too.
Yeah, exactly. And I did that for forever. I mean, I was doing it in high school and continued doing it out of high school into college and after college. And I remember the night that I knew I wanted to be a bartender is I was DJing. It was packed. I had people coming up requesting songs because back then you can go up to the DJ and talk to them and request songs. And so I had a line at the DJ booth that people wanted to get in, but I couldn't let anybody in the DJ booth because the equipment and the space and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was busy. I was juggling a lot, and I look over at the bartenders, and they have a packed bar, and it's just lined up with a bunch of beautiful women at the bar, screaming the bartender's name. They're high-fiving, they're hugging. They're sitting there having conversations with them. And I saw that what I was doing was providing entertainment and controlling the crowd. but also what they were doing was providing entertainment, controlling the crowd, and they're able to interact with the people that are in front of them.
Right.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
they were hosting the party.
exactly, yeah. And it was really at that point I realized that I wasn't the party, that they were the party, that people were coming into this bar to see the bartenders, and the music was great, but I was the second host of the party. I wasn't the primary host of the party.
And you thought you were the primary host for so long, right?
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
I'm running this show. I'm running this show until it finally dawned on you that the bartender was actually running the place.
Yeah, I was like, I can't even talk to people, you know. I'm having fun. I know they're having fun, but that interaction, you know, I love that guest interaction and being able to have conversations and look at people in their eyes and stuff like that. So that was the only piece I was missing from being in the DJ booth.
So how did you make the step to bartending?
Well, TGI Fridays was opening up in the town I was living in. I grew up, I was born in California, but I grew up in Vermont. And I knew I wanted to always come back to California, so a TGI Fridays opened up in Burlington, Vermont. And I was like, I'm going to get a job there and then transfer out to California. So I walked in the door, and I said, hey, I'm here to apply to be a bartender. You know, I saw my friends do it. I knew I could do it. And I remember the GM kind of laughed at me, and they said, you have zero experience. And I was like, but I'm a quick learner. And they just laughed again.
That's
so
a classic
said,
answer, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was a little cocky, you know, cocky DJ, like, hey, you should know who I am. But I got shot down real quick, and they said, no, we do like you, though. We're going to make you a server. And I was like, all right, let's do this. And that was my second serving job ever. So I wasn't, you know, a career server or anything like that. It was my second serving job ever. But I knew that I wanted to be a bartender. I put it in the GM's mind. I put it in the bar manager's mind that that's what I'm striving for. So 6 months later, they promoted me to bartender because I proved myself. It was kind of nice.
That's great. 6 months later.
Yeah, 6 months later. And then I thought I was a rock star again, but I really wasn't. I got shot down real quick.
How much time did you have to spend in the service bar?
Yeah, well, that's what I spent 6 months in the service bar. It took me 6 weeks to train. I had to do 350 cocktails and answer 350 cocktail questions perfectly. My passing grade had to be a 95 or 90% or above. So, you know, back then, Fridays, they really put their bartenders to test. And even when you got into the bar, you had to be in the service bar.
Yeah, we always talked about that, and we still do today, but not so much anymore. But there was a day when Fridays just they were harvesting bartenders, you know, they were farming bartenders. Not every, but so many people today that we talk to that are having really successful careers now have some kind of connection. 6 degrees of separation, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or TGI Fridays. You know, the people that have truly made a career of themselves have Fridays in their blood somewhere. It's a shame that they're. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's so true, and you know, there's a lot of people that I followed as far as much as I could when I was coming up in bartending, and then came to find out that they had previously worked for Fridays, and I was like, well, that's why, you know, you're doing this, or you know, that's why your training is so well, and you know, even outside of Fridays and when I go and do trainings and stuff like that, and I run into bartenders that are what I like to call legacy bartenders that may have been doing it for over 15 years and they're still cracking it. You know, they tell me that they were originally trained with Fridays, which is what's kept them, you know, so relevant over the years. But unfortunately, as we all know, Fridays isn't what it used to be, and that's just things change.
Right, right.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and so many different things that have been the cause of that, you know, so many different things. And so your Fridays, you're a bartender, and you moved up into management at Fridays, and you were your own manager.
Yeah.
Or with Fridays, GM, right?
I was a GM, and before that, which was one reason why it was hard for me to make that step into management, which a lot of bartenders, especially if they're successful bartenders, never want to get into management because it's less money and it's more hours.
That was my thing always. I always said, I'm never going into management.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
behind the bar was my
yeah.
place, you know?
Exactly. No, I mean, again, there's so many of us that are like that, and I said that for so many years, and I was corporate trainer. I was traveling all over the place. I was competing in all the competitions, and not ever winning the world competition, but climbing that ladder to get to the worlds. Um, and so there was no reason for me to go into management until the vice president of the company came into my restaurant, and he said, "Phil, I need you to be a general manager." And I said, "That's great, but I don't have any management experience to be a general
So you
manager."
went from bartender to general manager?
I was the first one in company history that got promoted from bartender to general manager. I didn't go through any of the other steps. However, I used to train managers on like liquor costs and pour costs, and so we'd have our manager breakout trainings, and they would bring me, the head bartender, to come and work with the groups and train them. So, and I did 50 plus openings for them. There was a lot behind it, and
Yeah, oh, I'm
obviously,
sure there had to be. I mean, they would be making smart decisions in order to just promote a
yeah,
bartender to general manager. Clearly, you had the
yeah.
background to do it. Um,
I
it's
tell
just
you what, there was a lot of people that weren't happy that I got promoted to GM. There's other managers in the company that were waiting for a spot like that, and here I come and I kind of take it away. So I felt for them, and luckily I had more support than any of the haters that came through, and
right. You always
I
will.
became the GM of TGI Fridays in Compton, California, of all places, and people thought I was crazy. I moved out there, and I really submerged myself into the culture and into making sure that restaurant was going to be successful, and we were number 2 in our region, which is awesome, and never had an issue, never had a problem there, and it was a glorious time. I did it for 2 years before I made my next step.
So then you step out and you decide to start your own consulting business and start your own company. Where what was your goal when you first stepped out of Fridays, stepping out on your own? What were your goals then, and what did you think it might look like when you got out there?
You know what? It's interesting that you say goals, because initially I didn't have any goals. I knew what I didn't want to be doing anymore. And being a GM and starting to see some success with being a GM, even though I was putting in 60 hours a week, and then looking at the next step would be like a regional manager, or climb up the corporate chain. And I knew that I was going to be putting in more hours per week, and what that was distancing myself further and further away from not only behind the bar, but that interaction with guests, and really being able to have that one-on-one time with people that were in front of me and the guests. So I wanted to step away for that reason, not knowing exactly where I was going to go. Although I did know that I wanted to get back behind the bar, which is what I ended up doing.
Right. So you just started bartending again, and started taking on clients to start helping with beverage menus, or where did you go from there?
Yeah. So, I started bartending again, and I fell into a job for a pretty high-end molecular mixology bar club, and we did a lot of fun stuff, spherification and liquid nitrogen, and doing every crazy thing that you can imagine. Our bar director was down for, so I learned a ton.
I can't imagine.
Being behind the stick then.
The two extremes there,
incredible.
like molecular mixology is the Flair bartending of craft mixology, right?
Yeah. It's a lot of times it's something that people always want to do, but they don't have the opportunity maybe to do it, or don't have the wherewithal to be able to do it.
Right.
And the same thing with Flair is, a lot of people look at Flair bartenders, and as much as you may say, stop juggling that bottle, you kind of wish that you could, flip that bottle into the tin and be able to pour a drink that way. So yeah, it is definitely kind of like the higher end of the craft cocktail world. And it was insane, man. It was crazy. I think that we first met at the nightclub and bar show
Yes.
at one of the conventions out there.
Yeah, you were
Yeah,
just some
and
random dude that walked up to me, and we started talking, and then I recognized you from Bar Rescue, and I was like, wait, hold on a second.
I mean, the thing, but see, I might have been a random dude to you, but you weren't a random dude to me, because you were the person that I first like bought videos for when I was training on Flair bartending, and nobody really had those DVDs out at the time. And so I bought like every DVD that you came out with, I was like, let me see what Dean does. And, so I knew exactly who you were when I walked up to you. And, one thing that you always taught me was that showmanship behind the bar. And I felt like I had already had it, being groomed by Fridays, but I saw how you would always take it to another level. And I was like, oh, okay, so the boundaries are wide open. You can
Yeah.
really,
Oh,
really
wow.
have
That's
fun
really
behind
cool
the
to hear
bar.
that.
Yeah, no. It's there's an old promo video of me, that old school Fridays Flair days, and one competition I had seen your floating tin, but I wasn't able to get one. And I think the first time I ever met you was even before Bar Rescue days, where you were pushing your floating tin at Nightclub Bar Show.
Oh, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think
We
you
had
had done,
we had 1 year where we took the floating tin down, and we sold probably 300 of them. It was incredible.
yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, you sold so many that you didn't have any more for me to buy.
Right. Yeah, yeah. We completely
Yeah.
sold out in the first day. There was people like clambering over top of each other like zombies. It was the funniest thing.
I tell you, man, it's so I went and I was competing in like my finals at TGI Fridays, and I was gonna next stop was gonna be the world division competition, and that was such an integral piece to what I wanted to do. And I specifically went to Vegas to get it, and you had sold out.
Oh,
Um, yeah, but I tell you what I did though is I went home and I made my own,
right.
and
It's in
it's
the Magic
freaking
DVD, right?
hilarious. But I didn't solder anything. I didn't do it the right way at all. I used red and white tape, and I taped the outside of the tin, and I made it go inside, and I tied and it ended up working, but it was a one shot deal. Like if it didn't work the first time I tried it, I couldn't reset that. Like it
Right.
was over with because all the tape would have came off.
That's
Um,
right.
but I
The
recreated it, and I ended
the
up winning that
Flairco Magic
competition. So
DVD
thank you.
teaches how to do it. Uh,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah. I believe it does. I haven't watched it in a long time. Because I used to make it
Do you still
myself.
have
I
those
used to just.
DVDs?
What's that?
You still have them floating around out there?
I think Bar Products still might have some of the DVDs available.
Yeah.
But I've got a couple on a shelf across the room. That's about it. I put the Flair stuff up on YouTube, so it's there they're free on YouTube. But I didn't put the magic stuff on YouTube. I didn't want to just give away the magic tricks, I didn't.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have put them on video, but I did. So.
Yeah. That's all right. That's all right.
So how did you get
We
into
appreciate
Bar
you.
Rescue? I did an audition for Jon Taffer and the producers at Nightclub and Bar.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
and
cool.
I talked to them for probably 20 minutes or so, and it seemed
Nice.
like everything was going well. And then John found out about my DVDs. They said, "How many bartenders have you trained?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe thousands. I don't know." He goes, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, I've got 4 training DVDs online or out there," and it was over after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess
That was probably closer in the beginning of Bar Rescue's growth, and
yeah, it was right at the
getting
very
big
beginning. It
out
was
there.
before they'd even shot a show.
Yeah. That's crazy. So when I met you at Night Bar, I was actually there because I worked for them. So I was, one of the guys behind the scenes that for every convention would help to put together all the toolbox sessions and every single breakout session and the drinks and batch all the cocktails and, the operational piece of it.
So
I
you
was
didn't
actually
come in
part of
as
John's-
a celebrity bartender for the show.
well, I wasn't there for that yet. Yeah, it was before the show actually when I was doing that, and it was the first year that it was starting. And I remember we were at like this corporate dinner, and John was there, and one of the people that I work with said, "Hey, this guy is starting his own reality show about like bars and fixing bars. You should go talk to him." And I was like, "Okay, that's great because I love entertainment. I love bartending. Like I want to mix the two." So I went up to him and talked to him, and he didn't pay any attention to me at that time. He was just like, he's like, "Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hopefully it'll be good. We're working hard." I mean, he was nice to me, but he wasn't like, "Oh, why don't you come with me and try out for the show," or anything like that. It wasn't until I was back here in Hollywood and I opened up a restaurant in Hollywood on Cahuenga, and rolled out their bar program and everything. And this girl used to come in all the time, and finally she came back and she said, this may be a long shot, but we're doing a show that's centered around like bars and bartenders, and I think you'd be perfect for the show. We're in our second season right now. Would you be interested in it? And I just kind of laughed because I knew it was Bar Rescue, and I knew, that John was in charge of it, and we had that conversation before. So I was like, yeah, sure.
So it
And
was
my
really
MV
more of an
was-
organic thing. It wasn't like you knew somebody who knew somebody to get you in it. It was just kind of
Exactly.
right place at the right
Yeah.
time, and you knew somebody.
The universe kind of just came around full circle and was like, oh no, you belong doing this. So super blessed with it. My interviews were insane. I had to go through 8 different interviews with production companies, and back then Diageo was sponsoring everything, so I had to meet with 3 or 4 of them. And
Right.
How
How many episodes did you do?
I've done quite a few. I never like to say exactly how many, because I think I jinx myself. I'm an old sports guy, so there's small little superstitions that I have.
Very good.
But I've done quite a few. I've been with them for 6 years now, so it's quite a
And
few.
are they still going?
Just signed on to their 9th season. So, they were supposed to shoot last year, and then obviously, stuff happened. So they just signed on to their 9th season, and they'll start production, a little bit later on this year. And I would be shocked if it didn't go to a season 10, but they got season 9 coming up.
Good for you guys. It's such an interesting show. I mean, it's fun reality show, right?
Yeah. I think that it feeds a couple of different minds, and then there's a lot of minds that it doesn't feed. I think
Every
it's good
show is
for
like
people.
that, right?
Yeah, right. No kidding. There's definitely the drama. There's action. As far as the characters that are on the show, and I think what makes the show fun is they're all real people. And some reality shows, it's what's called scripted reality. So like they'll go up to a reality show star and say, we're going to try to create this situation, and this is how we want you to react, but just be natural. That's how a lot of scripted reality shows are. Bar Rescue, all we do is go in there and we just film everything. There's never a time where, a producer will come up to me and say, hey, Phil, I want you to do this, and we're going to try to set this up. They're just like, we have 8 cameras. We're just going to film this shit show out here and see what happens. And they always get a good episode out of it.
So they always create a story with the footage in the back. You don't start with a story.
Exactly, yeah.
It's
No,
all
we
built on
always
the back
have
end.
like the thing with real reality shows and reality TV is the story evolves as the days go by. So, it might start off one way one day, and we think it's probably going to end up, being like this, but then there's a curveball and something else happens, and then the whole story goes off in a different direction. But that's the beauty of reality, is that the reality of the situation then dictates what happens in the show.
Right. And how's John to work with?
Yeah. He's fun. He's a lot of fun. He's the way he is on the show because he has to be. He only has a limited amount of time to be in there. And unfortunately, there's a lot of owners and bartenders and people out there in our industry that are full of a lot of shit. So he's got to kind of break through that in order to find out what the real problem is, which is, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, is that he gets, really heated in the beginning of the show because he's trying to break down barriers. And then he starts to really get into.
And he's trying to bring out the
feeling
passion in the other person, right? Get down to the inside of them to get the real truth out.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's some of the stuff that he comes up with in his mind and his thought process is always a learning time for me, and I always take a lot of it into to heart. Every time I'm on the show, I learn something new, and I look at something a little bit differently, which is always fun. But it's a blast. I get to travel the whole country and see a lot of different people and meet a lot of different faces and interact with a lot of bartenders. And whenever I do training on the show for the bartenders, I always leave my contact details so I can further helping them out, after the show. And I've been contacted by a lot of people that used to be on the show that are like, hey, I'm doing this now. What do you think about, this direction that I want to go in? So it's always fun to keep
to other work for your consulting. So
yeah. It could be for the consulting, or it just could be for a personal help of here's my experience. This is what I would do.
what are some of your highlights from the show? Give me one good highlight. One of your favorite favorite moments for whatever it is, whether you helped somebody the most on that episode or it was just a funny thing?
Oh man, I tell you, my very first episode. Well, my first and my second episode are probably my two most epic ones. Not my
Okay.
favorite ones, but the most epic ones. In my very first episode, there was just this knucklehead bartender that was really cocky and arrogant and just kind of eating his grandfather's money away by running the bar down to the ground. So we did our stress test where we, go in there, we pack the place, and we put him in stress. And he was making a simple margarita, very simple recipe. I think I only had 3 or 4 ingredients in it at the time, and he just kept making them wrong. He was over pouring them, short pouring them, not filling up the glasses all the way. And so I kept on him, and I was like, Justin, you're short pouring. Justin, you're over pouring. Justin, there's not enough alcohol in there. Justin, it's just juice in here. And then finally, I was like, Justin, you keep messing up these drinks, bro. And he's like, what do you want me to do? You're just going to throw them out? And I was like, I just want you to make them right. That's all I want you to do. And then I said, here, let me show you one more time. So I took the bottle and I took the tin, and I didn't do anything crazy. I just did a nice long pour and then snapped it off at the end and then continued making the drink. And he walked out pissed.
Right.
And then as I was shaking the drink, I just turned and looked at him, and I was like, hey, Justin, this is how you bartend, bro. And then he walked off, and the crowd went crazy. And that was kind of,
that was one of your first episodes.
That was my very first episode. I don't know where it came from, because that's not how I am. That's not ever how I am in training. But this guy was such a knucklehead, and he would not listen to me. And he was so arrogant that I felt like he just needed to be brought down just a little bit. And we continued to have a great episode and a great launch. And he was cool, and he understood, why that happened. And they, to this day, that was 7 years ago almost, they're still open and they're thriving. So, whatever we did there, it worked.
And Justin's happy to see you now if you go back, right?
No, not quite. We actually did a reunion special, and he refused to be on it. It was just his mom and his sister. So, yeah,
wow.
He's still not too happy with me.
All right.
That's all right, though. He's putting money in the bank account, so I'm happy for him.
Right. And how about a challenge? What was one of your biggest challenges there, or discouragement? Just something that you still scratch your head about?
Yeah. I've been lucky enough to be on 2 episodes that Jon walked out on and decided he didn't want to continue with the remodel.
Okay.
And they've both just been these knucklehead owners that would not listen. And I think my favorite walkout was we were in Chicago, and there was this place called The Dugout. And this guy, Ed, owned it. And he was just a jerk. He was a jerk to his employees, his staff, didn't know how to run a bar, was just questioning everything that we said, everything that we did, would not stop drinking the whole time we were there. He didn't care about anything. Got into multiple screaming arguments. Myself, my buddy Chef Ryan Scott, who was the culinary expert on the show, Jon was yelling at him, screaming at him, and we just couldn't break the wall down on this guy. He was just too big of a knucklehead. So we got far enough where we actually remodeled the bar. However, his staff were all in agreement that they walked out on him, and they said, we will not work for him because he won't change. And so what Jon did is he just left the keys in his hands and walked away. And Ed had to open his bar with no staff, nobody there, no lights or camera action or any of that type of stuff. So unfortunately, we did remodel the bar. However, we never really launched the bar for him. So that was kind of fun. And he was probably the biggest knucklehead that I ever came in contact with. And we couldn't break him. We couldn't break through. He wouldn't budge. So good luck to him. I think they sold that place, but good luck to that guy.
Well, maybe he realizes that he shouldn't be in that business, right?
Right, exactly.
It looks incredibly tough to do. I've been watching the show for years, as so many have, and being in the industry, I'm watching it and going, how would I do? What would I do? It doesn't look like it's an easy task by any means.
Yeah,
working with these bartenders that are constantly pushing back.
With those training too, is that we don't have a lot of time to train the bartenders.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that need to happen. But my mindset going into those trainings is that if I can make them just a little bit better, that if I can make them want it a little bit more, then at least I set them on the right path where they can still continue to grow and do better and be better.
If you could just turn the light on, right? If you could just turn the switch on to make them see that there is another whole career out there if they wanted it. All right, I want to talk about this next video, which is kind of setting up the Spirits in Motion.
You got another video?
Yeah, I do. It's well, you know it.
My name is Phil Wills. I'm owner and partner in the Spirits in Motion beverage consultancy. Myself and my business partner, Tony Pereira, really look to solidify what it means to be in the beverage industry, to take our clients' beverage menus to the next level, and to help train new bartenders to be as successful as they possibly can be. This is the Pineapple Express. We're gonna start off with 2 ounces of monkey shoulder scotch. We're gonna add in 1 ounce of a pineapple spiced shrub, 3/4 ounce of velvet falernum, which is a spiced liqueur, 1 ounce of fresh lime juice, a 1/2 ounce of aquafaba. Aquafaba is unique because it substitutes egg whites, but has the same osmosis process as the protein in egg whites. So after dry shaking the cocktail, we'll add ice and give it a good shake with ice, and then do another reverse dry shake to really build the volume of that cocktail, and then pour it into the 1924 gin and tonic glass by Libby. I really love this drink because it's a take on tiki drinks. People think that you only can use rum in a tiki drink, but you add scotch to this drink and it brings out a nice smoky flavor with all those island spices and fresh citrus. I love the curves and aesthetics of this glass. It's a real showstopper and brings out the aromatics in this cocktail.
That's no bar rescue episode, is it?
No, that's like Chef's Table, episode on Netflix.
Right.
Oh man, I mean, that was a good-looking drink, though.
That was a good-looking drink and great-looking shots. Did you get that? That was a Libby's promoting the Libby's glassware, right?
Yeah. So we teamed up with Libby with some of their Libby Pro glassware to help them with creating cocktails, and then we also teamed up with Chef's Roll, who they're huge in the culinary side of things, but now they're starting to bring in a lot of the mixology and that type of stuff, and they just wanted something that was created from the Spirits in Motion, like out of our ideas. So we were able to produce that cocktail.
It was sophisticated. Every single piece of that video, where it was shot, and the cleanliness, and then the moving of the cameras to the flowers, it was just absolutely stunning. And I wanted to show people all of that because we see on Bar Rescue where you're in these dive bars and trying to resurrect some old bar, to that, showing the diversity of Phil Wills behind the bar there. I think it looks great.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's probably the biggest challenge with Bar Rescue is you're dealing with bartenders that don't have a lot of experience, so you have to take a simplistic approach to cocktails. But at the same time, the world of cocktails is so vast and so grand that you want to stay relevant across all boards. So we spend a lot of time with R&D and creating new drinks and figuring out how we can layer in additional flavors. And really it spans from different types of clients. If you're a smaller location, a dive bar where you just need like 2 or 3 ingredient cocktails, or if you're a fancy $18 a drink cocktail bar, we want to make sure that we can kind of approach both those areas and not only zero in on just being able to do one type of drink or one type of cocktail.
So
expansion, you got to expand.
You got to keep it moving. You got to keep growing, and that's something that I always talk about too, right? Is a little bit of flair, a little bit of mixology, a little bit of everything to really spread out your resume and make sure you've got a little bit of something to bring everybody. What's next for you and Spirits in Motion or Phil Wills, or what do the Roaring 22s look like for you?
Man, it's I think our industry is obviously going to be changing, and I do believe that it's going to change for the better. I think that unfortunately we're losing a lot of bars and restaurants that had to shut down because of the pandemic and aren't able to operate. But what it does open up is that new ideas, new thoughts will come into play. I think that the job market at one point was pretty easy for a bartender to get a job just by going into, any place and having a pretty face or having a hookup or a friend or knowing somebody. Now I think that the demand is going to be a lot higher for people coming into bars, and their expectations for those bartenders are going to be a lot greater, because we have to make some sort of a shift here. Coming out of COVID, we know that people don't have a lot of money to spend, so we want to make sure that everybody that's employed is going to be great and they're going to pull their own weight. So I think for myself, for the Spirits of Motion is, we stay close with a lot of research and see where the market's moving and see how consumer trends are going. That helps us out with our cocktail development side of things. In addition to that, we're looking to help out operators out there to, if they have an idea, to, make it a reality for them and really get in there and make sure that their vision is going to be the most successful that it possibly can be. So, it's kind of business as usual for myself, for my company. We're going to keep forging forward. I do know that Bar Rescue has a season 9, and John's invited me back for this next season. So, I'll definitely be doing some work out there. And hanging out with Dean on your show, I'm hoping that I get an invite back. You are, there's a lot of people that influence you as you start your career and as you go through your career. And you're always somebody that has influenced me. You help groom me. And what's crazy is that we never met, and you were able to still do that. So, I think for any aspiring bartenders out there or people that have become successful, is to always share your always share your thoughts, your knowledge, your time, because collectively, I think we've all made our industry a lot better. And the less divide that there is between mixology and Flair and dive bartending, like I always say, it's all tending bar. There's different ways to do it. There's it's a different vessel sometimes, but we're all still tending bar. And as a community, I think we can continue to grow, our industry and come out of this thing on top and be a lot better. And I know there's so many people out there that have done a great job, but I'm looking forward to getting back behind the wood. I'm looking forward to shaking hands and kissing babies and hanging out with the staff again.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to having some guests at the bar again. I mean, we're trying to create studios. I've got this studio here at my house. I've got 2 studios at the office now, just producing video, because I used to have guests coming to me at our plant.
Right.
I've got a giant room. It's a 50-foot room and a 26-foot bar. It's just empty right now. And we had guests coming in 5 days a week.
We'll get back there. These are the dark times. But I was talking with somebody earlier today, and I was talking about pivoting, and the people that are successful learn how to pivot when times are tough. Obviously you've done it. You've done it with your show. You've done it at America Craft Beverages, and it has to continue to be that way.
You have to reinvent yourself.
I think that I'll tell you what. Somebody, and I don't know how much time. I just keep talking.
We've got all the time we want.
He kind of he reinvented himself really well, and he was somebody that I followed forever with Christian Del Peche.
Oh yes, yeah.
It was your videos, and his videos were the ones I had, and no offense to you, but his videos were like, okay, someday I'm going to get that advanced, so I want to learn that. Well, I tell you, what I always appreciated about you was you taught that working Flair. You taught that what I call practical Flair, where that I could adapt and make money with behind the bar.
Right, that's always been my goal.
Yeah, Christian's Flair was that the competition freestyle Flair that if I ever want to go down that road, I'm going to learn how to juggle 6 objects and not drop anything.
Yeah, I've always tried to keep everything that I do as part of tending to the bar. Us being bartenders, the 2 words, as Jerry Thomas would write, the bartender. So I've always tried to stay within there as opposed to just being a Flair guy or just being a mixologist and trying to keep it all together. But that's just the way that I do it. You do it a little differently, and Christian does it differently, and that's, like you were saying earlier, there's the vastness of this industry. When you collect everything that you do along your personal journey, it really makes you so unique, so uniquely you, as they say.
Yeah, and I always tell people, never look down to a fellow bartender or somebody that does something a little bit differently, always try to learn from them. And if they're doing something that isn't so great for you, then just don't do it. But you can always pull something. I still learn today when I train bartenders. So
Right. Yeah,
always
yeah.
learn.
I learned so much training people, and then going to competitions as well. I always say go into as many competitions as you can whenever you can. And it's not about winning them; it's about going on the journey of going through the competition, and how much you learn about yourself as opposed to winning the competition.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how the styles of bartending come together post COVID.
I know, right?
I think we're going to have a lot of mixologists that do Flair and Flair bartender. I think we're going to get that Jerry Thomas that we've all been looking for, that perfect combination of a little bit of Flair and really good drinks.
You can't walk into any bar these days without somebody knowing how to make a true old fashioned, and it's super common.
Right.
Whereas back in the day, call it 10, 15 years ago, everybody was doing all kinds of different versions of it, if they even knew how to make it. So now, you go to your local bar and say, give me an old fashioned. They're probably going to make it for you correctly, or at least know what you're talking about.
Right.
So, the craft bartending and the pre-prohibition style and all the knowledge is starting to creep into every other style. And I see people flipping tins here, and I ask them if they know how to do Flair, and they're just like, no, I always do this. And I was like, that's cool, man. Keep on doing it.
It's Flair. Right.
It is, yeah. See that big smile on your face? That's Flair.
Right. Good stuff. Hey, Phil, my drink's done. How's yours looking?
Yep, it's done.
All right.
That was good.
That was a whole lot of fun. Yeah.
I like hanging out, man.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Phil Wills. Woo-hoo! All right.
Thank you. Much love, man.
I've got, let's get to your social media here. There it is.
Bring it on.
All right. Tell us where we're going to find you and what to expect on these things.
That's cool. So my website, thespiritsofmotion.com, that's going to be myself, my business partner, and a lot of different projects that we work on. We have a blog on there that we post to every month. So that's always some good information. My Instagram, PhilIam11, that's where I put a lot of mostly work-related stuff and entertainment stuff and the show and, myself and my family. And then the Spirits of Motion Instagram is where you're going to find, all of our cocktail creations, and, we celebrate the industry on there. And then Unsolicited is actually a lifestyle brand that we started, and you're going to find like a lot of cool lifestyle stuff on there. So
and that's something you started with your wife, correct?
Yeah. She takes the lead on that one.
Good.
And we're just getting started, but we figured there's a lot of content that we've come across and that we're a part of, and a lot of insight that we like to share. So she's running that one, and we're working hand in hand on some of the projects coming up on it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I saw that and in my research and thought I have to include that. You speak, you talk about your wife whenever we chat. And she's very present in everything you're doing online and everything else. So I wanted to make sure that we showcase that as well.
Thank you.
So that's Phil on social media. Phil, thank you very much for joining us today, man.
No, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And everybody hanging out, watching. Keep on watching, subscribe, like, share. I'm going to do the same thing. Thank you, Dean, for having this platform. I think bringing people from the industry together and having conversations is one of the best way to help us grow this industry.
And hopefully help heal it a little bit and bring us back together again, maybe a little stronger.
Yeah, can't wait till we can have a drink together in real life.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's One Drink with Phil Wills.